There's a saying, never meet your heroes, because maybe your hero will be mean or rude or just won't live up to the hype. But whoever said that, their hero wasn't Brian Barczyk. I think it was probably about 2013, and I was scrolling through YouTube, which was a very different landscape back then. Vine was still a thing. This is a different time. And I saw this guy with his long hair, and he had this sidekick, Chewy, and he's getting bit by snakes, and he's got this intro music that's heavy metal, and I'm like, who the heck is this guy? Like, this is the guy. And it was Brian Barczyk. I remember it vividly. I remember where I was when I first saw him. I remember starting to watch him. And then over the course of the next few years, although I had Reptiles already, I got even more involved because of Brian. He kind of rekindled my love for reptiles. I was considering selling the 3 that I had, a couple bearded dragons and a leopard gecko. And although growing up, my heroes were, Steve Irwin and the Crap Brothers and guys like that, Brian very quickly kind of made me realize, okay, so I've always wanted to work with reptiles my entire life. Like, that's all I've ever wanted to do. And I kind of gave up on that because I didn't go to university. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a zoologist. Like, there's no room for me in this community. And then there's Brian, who he's not a biologist. He's not a zoologist. He's a guy who's got a passion for reptiles, like it says in the intro. And here he is as the face of the industry. And then he just kept growing and growing. And then in 2016, he started a vlog, and I started to follow that. And I started to follow other creators as well. And then eventually I thought, you know what, maybe I could do this too. Maybe this is something that I could get involved in, and I could work at a facility like his. Or maybe I could try to make videos and see what happens. So I studied and I watched Brian's videos. And the more I learned about reptile, I probably learned more from Brian than the Discovery Channel about reptiles. Not just morphs, but species in general, which is where my heart kind of grows fond, is different species rather than the morphs. And then I saw that he ran a successful business and he's a family man. It just seemed like he's like the guy. And as I started to watch in 2019, a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, you should start a YouTube channel, which is funny because I was already kind of thinking about it. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. If some business guy from Michigan can do it, I mean, isn't that inspiration enough that all of us should give it a try? Brian stuck all of his money on a breeding project when he was like 16 years old. That's ballsy. And over, he took these giant risks. So what's the risk for me to get in front of a camera? So I did. And I remember commenting on his videos all the time. And then, I don't know, I think it was maybe 6 months later, I see this check mark in my comment section as Brian. And he's giving me words of encouragement. And he replied to a couple of my comments, and I saw that he knew who I was, and he brought me up on a podcast one time. And it was like this fanboy moment. And I'm a full-fledged grown adult. Like, I don't feel like this about anybody. But I got butterflies when I saw Brian acknowledge me, that I was a real person. Like, this guy, to me, was a celebrity. He's just as big as anybody on the Discovery Channel or Animal Planet. And then one day, I remember I woke up and there's this blue check mark when you couldn't buy them. You had to earn it, in my inbox on Instagram. And it's Brian inviting me up to the Reptarium. I've told this story before, but he's the most selfless man I've ever met in my entire life. And you see it over and over. He gets these other creators who are much smaller. He has nothing to gain, monetarily anyway, or for clout or his following or whatever. And he kind of takes them under his wing. And then for me, I figured, okay, Brian's busy. I'm going to show up to Michigan. I'm going to, come in there, shake his hand. He's going to show me around for an hour or two. And then that's going to be the end of it. I think I got there around 10 o'clock in the morning. I was a little bit late. Him and Jay were waiting for me outside. Both of them, it's like there wasn't no handshake. This was this great big hug. Jay swallowed me up. He's like the size of a bear. And it was just, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? Here's a key. Go wherever you want to go. He showed me around. He showed me the blueprints for the Legacy Aquarium, which wasn't yet named yet. He showed me a lot of other things that I don't even know if are going to happen now or what, if I'm allowed to talk about. And he really like let me in. Like, I felt like I've known the guy for 100 years. And then I figured, okay, so now we're going to go and shoot a little bit. First of all, he wanted to shoot my video first. He wanted to throw around ideas. He wanted Jay to help film. He wanted his staff to help. He let me do whatever I want. And then he wanted to film his video after the fact. So he put me first. And then when that was all said and done, Brian didn't stop talking about reptiles until well past 8 o'clock at night. I was there for 10 hours. This guy has so much stuff going on. He didn't look at his phone. He's not reading emails. He's not doing anything. And if someone comes up to him, hey, can you solve that yourself? Brian was there for me that day. And I didn't know this dude. He doesn't know me. I'm just some guy. And at the time I had I think maybe 100,000 subscribers, a little bit more than that maybe. He has nothing to gain from me. It was the most selfless act I've ever seen. And it is something that I take with me, and that's why I do collaborations with smaller creators. Because I realize, like, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? You're not wasting your time. You're investing your time in somebody else. And even if you don't get a return yourself, they're going to give the return by being a good influence on the community. And that's the whole point of what any of us are doing in the first place. And then came Animal Con, the first one. And this dude, Brian, took time. He didn't do anything administrative at all. He handed it all off to his team, who did a great job. He wanted to be there as a creator and talk to everybody, and he gave all of his time. He's the last guy to leave, the first guy to show up. He's always smiling. He's not stressed out. This is a stressful event. This is a very stressful event, and he shows no stress. I'm sure he feels it, but he shows none. And then, you know, I get the opportunity where I can just text the guy, and he texts me back like we've been friends forever, and he's happy to help me with anything. If I ask him questions, there's no secrets. And then Animal Con 2.0 happens, and this is a few months after he starts complaining about stomach problems, and I mean, you guys know what happened. And so then he shows up where he's maybe being advised by medical staff not to be hugging people, and his immune system is maybe not the best. Maybe you shouldn't be shaking hands with everybody and meeting, 100, 1,000 people, and he doesn't care. He's like, no, I want to be here. Like, this is the event. I want to be a creator. I want to be like everybody else. He said in his opening speech, which, by the way, not a dry eye in the house. If you were there, you know that he doesn't want to be treated like a cancer patient. He wants to be treated like a regular person. And I think he was, and we all did that. And this sucks. Like, this guy knew that the prognosis wasn't good. And I truly do believe that he thought he was going to beat it. And he's the most optimistic person I've ever met. But he also knew that maybe he wouldn't. And maybe this would be the last time he saw a lot of these people. And I think a lot of people going out kind of realized that too. And it was a somber thing, but not in the way that you'd think. It was so uplifting. Like, this guy who is basically handed a death sentence says, nah, I'm good. I got stuff to do. I don't have time for this disease that kills 90+% of people who have it to kill me. I got bigger and better things to do. And for a guy not to slow down, but just continue and build an aquarium for the legacy of his family, I don't know, man. Like, that's... Who do you know like that? And then we got the news. There was a post, and he wasn't doing so good, and not long after, he passed. And it's one of those things where it was this guy that I saw on the internet who was just like this idol of mine, and then he became my friend. I could just message this guy whenever I wanted. And for a guy who gets hundreds of messages a day and DMs and whatever else, millions and millions of followers and subscribers, Brian would message me back faster than my own freaking mother would. This isn't a guy who's trying to be your friend for clout. Like, this is a guy who actually appreciated everyone around him. And up until even like a couple days ago, and yeah, it's just kind of crazy how things like that turn. But the point is not about how sad I am about it, and I'm sure you guys are too, but if it wasn't for him, there would be no me. And I know that there's a lot of other reptile YouTubers who can say that. And even the ones who wouldn't say it out loud, you better believe that Brian is the guy who created this niche. Before him, there was nothing. And after him, there is everything, and it's because of him. So although all of us took what he had for inspiration and spread it out and we do different things, at the end of the day, who do you think I got top 5 from? I know Clint and I joke that I got it from Clint. No, Brian was doing those in 2008. Those were the videos that I like to watch. That's the videos that I started to make. There's so many things about Brian that I took, and if it wasn't for him, I might be still working at a desk job, rotting away. I remember sitting at those desk jobs, felt like I was rotting. It just wasn't for me. I felt like I wanted to do something that was part of my passion. And if it wasn't for Brian, then I never would have that opportunity. So as cliche as it is, like, I owe my career to Brian. So Brian lived a short life, but he left this place a hell of a lot better than it was before him. So my condolences to the Barczyk family. Thank you to his whole family for letting him pursue his passion and do what he wants to do, because I know that there was a lot of sacrifice to do the amount of work that he was doing, that he could have been sitting with his family and could have been doing a million other things, but he chose to leave a legacy, and I truly don't believe it was a selfish thing at all. It was for everybody else. So I owe basically everything I have to Brian, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. So wherever you are now, Brian, I don't know how it works, but I love you and thank you so much. You are a true friend to me and an inspiration to so many. And yeah, until we meet again, my friend.